The name of the movie is The Equalizer. The movie begins with Robert living in an apartment by himself, and he had just woken up to go to work. Robert is a very organized person. Robert works in a home furnishing store and has a good relationship with his co-workers. And when it's time to rest, he meets Ralphie. Ralphie had an exam for a security guard job and asked Robert for help to help him lose weight because he had an exam in a week. Robert returns home after completing his work. At night, Robert was reading a book and was feeling lonely. Then Robert goes out to a restaurant near his apartment to finish reading the book. Before he started reading the book, there was a girl talking to him and asking him, did the man catch fish or not? And she meant the man in the book that Robert was reading. Robert replies, telling her that he barely threw the bait. This girl tells Robert that she bought a device that helps her make songs. Robert tells her that he is sure she is talented. Then she goes out and tells him that he must tell her what will happen to the fish in the book. On the second day, Robert meets the girl again, and she asks him about the fish in the book and whether the man caught this fish or not. Robert tells her that the man caught her, but the shark ate the fish. Suddenly a car comes in front of the restaurant and a call comes to the girl from a person named Slavy and asks her to get out of the restaurant and come to the car. The girl begs Slavy to stay in the restaurant because Slavy was scolding her. She walked out of the restaurant crying. It was clear that Slavy was a pimp and the girl was forced to do what he asked of her. Then the girl leaves the restaurant and gets into the car with the man who was waiting for her. Robert has been watching everything that happened since the beginning. On the second day, we see Robert helping Ralphie lose weight. Robert goes to the restaurant and as usual, he found the girl in the restaurant and she was sleeping, so he went to serve her food. But this time this girl goes and sits with Robert at his table. Robert notices that there are traces of beatings on her face. This girl was called Elena. Then he asks her what happened to her. She told him that the man she got in the car with was the one who hit her. Then she gives a CD to Robert that contains songs in her voice. Robert tells her that she does not have to work at something she does not want and that she can work elsewhere. She tells him that this thing is not easy. Then she asks Robert about his wife, but Robert tells her that he is a widower. Robert tells her that he is trying to finish reading 100 books like his wife used to do. Then Robert and Elena continued talking all night. While they were walking, a car came and stopped in front of them, and Slavy came out, who hit Elena and put her in the car. And Elena asked Robert not to interfere. Slavy gives Robert his personal card and tells him that if he wants a girl better than this girl, he should call him. The next day, when Robert went to the restaurant, he did not find Elena in the restaurant. Robert knew that Elena had been beaten and that was why she was hospitalized. Elena's friend tells Robert that Slavy beat her up. Robert goes to Slavy with $9,800. Robert tells Slavy that he will give him this money in exchange for leaving Elena. But Slavy refuses and was mocking Robert. Robert takes the money and then directs 3 skulls in the office towards all the gang members. Robert seems to be outside, but he locks the door and then sets the timer to 16 seconds. Then Robert kills Slavy gang members. Robert also shot Slavy in the neck. Robert was so meticulous that he knew how long he needed to kill them. Slavy, who was about to die, tells Robert that he may regret turning down the offer. The next day, when Robert goes to work, Ralphie comes and gives Robert a box of chips, and it contained a paper containing a number, which is the required weight that Ralphie was able to achieve in order to be accepted for the job. The news had spread about the murder of Slavy and his gang. We see a mysterious man named Teddy getting off the plane and then getting into the car and heading to the scene of the accident. When this man arrived at the scene of the accident, he began to anticipate what happened on the day of the accident. We know that this person is working for Pushkin. Slavic gang was led by Pushkin. There were corrupt policemen helping them, including a person named Frank. This man asks the corrupt policeman to do what he asks and also that he must provide information about the murder case of Slavy and his gang. The next day Robert was at work and learned that Ralphie had quit his job for no reason and he had a test as a security guard. So Robert goes to him and learns that he was helping his mother in her restaurant because it was burned. Ralphie tells Robert that it was because of an electrical fault, but Robert knew that the place was burnt by an act and not because of an electrical short. And Ralphie tells Robert he doesn't want trouble. Ralphie asks Robert to help them clean up. Robert noticed two policemen who were blackmailing Ralphie's mother and taking money from her. They are the ones who burned the place down because Ralphie's mom didn't give them the money on time. After the two policemen left the place, Robert asked them to return the money and he had photographed what happened. But they stopped him and tried to take his phone because he had filmed them. But Robert beat them and threatened them that if they did not return the money to Ralphie's mother, he would publish the video. Teddy takes Frank with him to meet the other gangs in order to find out who was behind Slavy's murder. Among these gangs was the Irishman John. Teddy knew that John and his gang had nothing to do with what happened. But despite that, Teddy killed him and his gang because John is out of control and also in order to deliver a message to the rest of the gangs. Teddy is talking to Elena's friend who was in the hospital with her. He asked her about Elena's whereabouts, but she lied to him and told him she didn't know. And Pushkin calls Teddy to ask her if he can find the murderer of Slavy and his gang. Teddy tells Pushkin that all the gangs allied to them did not do this, and that whoever did it was a professional, and that he would be able to find out soon. Teddy is interrogating his friend Elena because he knows she lied to him. He tells her that everyone told him that she was Elena's closest person and knew everything about her. She tells him everything, and she tells him that a man has come to visit her, and she gives the description of this man to Teddy. Then Teddy killed this girl. We see that the two corrupt cops returned the money to Ralphie's mother. Then Ralphie managed to get a job as a security guard after passing the test with the help of Robert. Teddy was able to figure out what Robert looked like and knew that he had entered the casino where Solvay was, but they did not see him leaving. The next day, a man was threatening Robert's co-worker with a gun and asking her to give him the money. Robert gives the money to this person who also wanted the girl's ring. Robert could not hit this thief because there were children in the workplace, so he asked the girl to give the ring to the thief. After the robber left, Robert tracked him down and was able to obtain the license plate number of the thief's car. The next day, the girl finds her ring at the place where she works. We know that Robert is the one who killed this thief and returned the ring to the girl. Teddy manages to get into Robert's apartment. Robert knew that someone had entered the apartment. When Robert opened the door, he found Teddy in front of him, who told him that he was investigating the murder of 5 Russians. Teddy asks Robert if he knows anything about this incident. But Robert tells him that he was actually at the scene to have dinner with his girlfriend. Teddy shows Robert a picture of Elena's murdered friend and asks him if he knew her. Robert tells him he knows her a little. Toddy is trying to deliver a message to Robert that he is the one who killed her and that he knows his descriptions through her. Robert knew that Teddy was not a cop because he refused to give him any card proving he was a cop. When Teddy comes out, he suspects that it was Robert who killed Slavy, and then asks his men to monitor him and gather information on him. Robert had cameras everywhere in his house. Teddy tells his men that all the information about Robert is incorrect. Then he asks them to go to Robert's house and bring him in order to interrogate him and find out for whom he works. Teddy sends someone to Robert who was dressed as a worker at the restaurant. Robert knows that this person is not a worker because his hand does not indicate that this man was a worker. This person tried to threaten Robert, but Robert managed to kill him. And then Robert comes out of the restaurant after he disconnects the power. Robert notices Teddy and Frank in a car in front of the restaurant, so he takes out his phone and takes a picture of them. Then Teddy pursues Robert, who was able to escape after hitting a man who works for Teddy, and he was able to know that this man is a policeman. Robert takes the policeman's badge and his phone. After Robert returned home, we noticed that he was hit in the foot by a bullet fired by the person who was dressed as a worker in the restaurant. Teddy's gang went to Robert's apartment, but they did not find him, and he was nearby, watching the apartment through the cameras he had previously installed. Teddy knew that Robert was watching them, so he told the police who worked with him to find him, or he would find other people who could find him. Then Robert goes to his friend Susan, who had a powerful position in the state. Robert asks her to bring him information about Teddy after he manages to take a picture of him and show it to Susan. Susan agreed to bring him information about Teddy. We know that Robert was living in hiding because his death was faked. Then Susan can bring information about Teddy and also about Pushkin, who works in the Russian mafia, and that Pushkin has great political connections and that Teddy works for him. She tells him that Teddy is very smart and has a bad reputation. She also brings him information about the corrupt cops working with Teddy. Among those corrupt cops is Frank, who left work after what happened. Susan tells her husband that Robert did not come to ask for help, but rather to ask permission to confront the Russian mafia. Robert is able to find Frank and interrogate him to find out all the information about Pushkin. Frank tells Robert about a place where Pushkin's illegal money is being collected. Robert enters with Frank as one of Pushkin's new men, and he tells them that he will take this place from them. Then Robert was able to take the gun from one of the gang members. And then Robert took out all the workers in this place after he gave them the money that was in the place. Robert asks Frank to call the police and tell them what happened. Then the police come and arrest Frank, and they find all the illegal money, and they also find all Pushkin's men tied up. Teddy was in the restaurant and talking to a person, and this person tells Teddy that he will find Robert. And then this person goes to the bathroom, and then Robert comes and sits in front of Teddy. And we know that he killed the man who was sitting with Teddy. Robert tells Teddy to call Pushkin and tell him to stop the mission. But Teddy refused. Robert tells Teddy that there is a Russian person with 5 children, and then he adopted an orphan child and he treated him like the rest of his children. But one day this child came and killed the man and his wife in their bed, and that no one knows about this until now. Robert tells Teddy that they weren't investigating the case properly because it was probably the man's adopted child who killed them. And the reason they were killed was because this child was afraid of being abandoned. Then Robert calls Teddy by his real name, which is Nikolai. Robert was hinting to Nikolai that he was the one who killed these 2 people when he was young. Nikolai tells Robert that he has no feelings and that he is not weak. Then Robert comes out and leaves his number in case Nikolai decides to cancel the mission. Robert continues to reveal Pushkin's operations and everything he and those with him do. And all this information he took via USB he took from Frank. Robert learns the location of an oil container owned by Pushkin, and Robert destroys it. Pushkin calls Nikolai and tells him to act quickly. Nikolai tells Pushkin that he has set up a new team and is going to kill Robert. Nikolai goes to the place where Robert works and takes Robert's colleagues hostage in order to lure Robert out. Nikolai gets Ralphie to talk to Robert to make sure they take them hostage. Robert goes to the place and Nikolai asks his men to kill Robert if they see him. Robert can enter the place without Nikolai's men noticing it. Robert plays music in the place, so the gang knows that Robert is in the place, and they start searching for him. One of the gang members takes Ralphie to show him where the sound is coming from. Ralphie tells him that the sound is coming from the security room. When they arrive, Robert is hiding and he manages to kill the man with Ralphie. Robert ambushes the gang members and kills them one by one. There was only Nikolai left who was close to killing Ralphie, but Robert managed to kill Nikolai and save Ralphie. 3 days later, in a heavily guarded palace in Russia, we watch Pushkin take a shower while Robert tells him to stay put. During their conversation, Robert hides, and he had made the water tap open and put electric wires in the ground, And when Pushkin came out to call the guards, he electrocuted and died. Robert comes out of the palace after killing all the guards. Robert returns to his normal life and has been walking with Elena, who is now in good health after being discharged from the hospital. She tells him that she has become reading books and started working and that her life has become better. And then she tells him that there is a person who put an envelope for her with an amount of 9,800 and a travel ticket to a specific country, and she believed that Slavy and his gang gave her this money so that she would not tell the police what happened. Then she thanks Robert for what he gave her and tells him that she will start a new life. And here the movie ends. Thank you for watching.